People in the street used to call her Bisi the Night Walker. Some said she had magic blood, because nobody ever saw her sleep. Morning would come, and she'd still be sitting by the broken kiosk, eyes half open, chewing roasted groundnuts like someone waiting for a miracle that forgot the way. Bisi was not old, maybe 25 or 26, but her eyes carried the tiredness of a woman who had lived 100 years. Her face still had beauty, the kind that refused to die even when life beat it black and blue. Every night, she painted her lips red and powdered her cheeks until she almost looked like someone from a music video. Then she'd wear her short skirt, slippers, and small handbag. That bag had everything she owned: a comb, a wrapper, and a half-used perfume that smelled like both heaven and trouble. Bisi, baby. The security man by the corner would shout every night, "You no day rest. You go soon disappear oh." She'd laugh and wave, "Ene money I day find, not sleep." People laughed whenever she said that, but behind her laughter was something heavy, a truth nobody cared to ask about. Bisi had not slept properly in 3 years. 3 whole years. She worked all night on the street and spent her mornings washing her clothes at the public tap, counting her money with slow fingers. Sometimes, she slept for 20 minutes sitting on a stool, then jumped awake, frightened by dreams that felt too real. The street was her home. The gutter knew her tears. The moon was her roommate. But if you had asked her why she lived that way, she would have smiled and said, "Because sleep is for people who have peace." The people around her thought she was just another prostitute. They didn't know she was fighting for someone, for her younger brother, Tony. 3 years ago, the police arrested Tony for something he didn't do. A neighbor accused him of stealing a motorcycle battery. He was only 17 then, a small boy who loved football and always said, "Sister Bisi, one day I go buy you big house." But the big house never came. The police beat him, dragged him to court, and he ended up in prison because nobody could pay the fine that would free him. That was the day Bisi's life changed. She had no one else. Their parents died years before, and the only job she could find paid so little that it couldn't even buy Gary. So one night, a friend named Tina told her, "If you go stand for that junction, you fit make quick money." At first, Bisi said no, but hunger and worry have a way of changing someone's mind. That was the first night she didn't sleep. The first man who stopped his car looked like a married man, but Bisi didn't care. She needed the money. She closed her eyes and told herself she was doing it for Tony. After that, one night became 2. 2 became a week. A week became 3 years. Yet, she never forgot her brother. Every week, she kept small money aside in a nylon bag. She told herself, "Once I reach the amount for his bail, I'll stop this life." Every night, she worked. Every morning, she counted. She became famous on the street. Even the bus drivers would honk and tease her. "Bisi, you be our area champion oh." She'd laugh. "Make Una respect me jare. I day hustle for better tomorrow." Sometimes her friends joked with her too. Tina once said, Bisi, even devil day sleep small. You no day rest." And Bisi replied, smiling tiredly, "Devil no get brother for prison." Everyone laughed, but deep down, it wasn't funny. Bisi's life became a circle: night, money, bath, repeat. But something strange happened the night everything started to change. It was around midnight, and Bisi was standing under the streetlight near the old bus stop. The light was flickering, and the air smelled of roasted corn. Suddenly, a small boy ran across the road, chasing a balloon. A car almost hit him. Bisi screamed, dropped her bag, and ran to pull the boy away. The balloon floated into the sky. The boy was safe, but her heart was beating fast. The driver shouted from his car, "You day mad? You WN die." Bisi shouted back, "And a small child you for hit oh." People gathered, scolding the driver. When the crowd left, Bisi turned to the boy. "Where your mama?" she asked. The boy pointed down the street. "My mama day sell puff puff." Bisi walked him back, still shaking from fear. The boy's mother thanked her with tears in her eyes. She gave Bisi a small paper bag of puff puff. "God bless you," she said. Bisi smiled. "Make God just remember say I day try," she whispered. That night, she didn't work again. She just sat by the gutter, eating puff puff slowly, looking up at the stars. For the first time in years, her eyes felt heavy. But she refused to sleep. Not yet. Because in her mind, she kept hearing Tony's voice, that small, cheerful voice saying, "Sister Bisi, don't give up on me." The next morning, Bisi sat at the public tap washing her clothes. The water splashed her face, cold and clean, but it couldn't wash away the heaviness inside her. Her small nylon bag of savings was growing. Every night, she counted and smiled a little. She was almost there. She knew exactly how much she needed. A man at the police station had told her, "If you fit bring 250,000 naira, your brother go come out." That amount sounded like the price of heaven. But she didn't stop. She counted her savings every Sunday, just to remind herself she was closer than last week. Her friends laughed when she refused to go clubbing. "Tina," she would say, "when my brother come out, NA celebration we go do, no be this kind noise you day call enjoyment." Tina rolled her eyes. "You too serious. Even Jesus rest on the seventh day, you no day rest at all." Bisi smiled. "Jesus no get brother for prison." They both laughed, and for a moment, the sadness didn't feel too heavy. But Bisi's nights were still long. Sometimes, she'd sit under the streetlight with her shoes off, legs crossed like someone waiting for a bus that would never come. The men came and went, some rude, some gentle, some too drunk to know her name. Yet, she always said to herself before each one, "Tony, this one is for you." Her body became tired, but her heart refused to rest. One night, around 2 a.m., the street was quiet except for distant music from a bar. Bisi was sitting by the roadside, half asleep with her chin on her knees. Suddenly, a man parked a clean white car beside her. He looked rich, gold wristwatch, perfume that smelled like something foreign. "Hey fine girl," he said, smiling. "You no day sleep." Bisi forced a smile. "I no day sleep, and I hustle I day hustle." The man laughed. "You're funny. I like that. How much for your night?" Bisi told him her price. The man nodded and said, "Okay, come in." Inside the car, he started asking questions. Too many questions. "What's your name? Are you from here? You don't have family?" She gave short answers. She didn't like talking too much. Then the man said something that surprised her. "You're too smart for this life. You talk like a person went to school." Bisi smiled faintly. "I finished secondary school before my life begins to bend small." The man sighed. "Bend doesn't mean break. You can still straighten it back." She looked at him for a while, then said softly, "When my brother come out, I go straighten am. I just day gather the last small thing." The man was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You love your brother like this?" Bisi laughed, though her eyes were wet. "Love as how? That boy NA my everything. NA him be the only person that calls me Sister Bisi with joy. If he doesn't survive, I go break." The man looked at her quietly, then handed her an envelope. "Take this." Bisi frowned. "What's this one?" "Just take it," he said. "You remind me of my late sister." When she opened it later that night, she saw 50,000 naira inside. She sat on the ground, staring at it like someone who had just found treasure. She wanted to run back and thank him, but his car was gone. That night, she cried quietly. Not from sadness, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. By the next week, she had enough. She counted her money over and over until her hand shook. 250,000 naira. She shouted in her small room, laughing like someone drunk with joy. "Tony, my baby brother, you go soon come home." Her neighbors thought she had gone mad. One of them said, "Bisi, you don't win lottery." She grinned. "This one better pass lottery. My brother day come out from prison." They all clapped for her, and someone even gave her a sachet of cold pure water to celebrate. She packed the money carefully inside a black nylon and tied it with thread. That night, she didn't go to work. She just sat by her window, smiling at the moon. For the first time in years, her eyes closed naturally. She slept for 3 hours straight, the longest in her life. When morning came, she dressed neatly. She even wore a small scarf and borrowed Tina's slippers because they looked newer. She walked proudly to the police station like a woman carrying her dreams in a nylon bag. At the front desk, she told the officer, "Good morning, sir. I came to pay for my brother's release, Tony Samuel." The officer looked at her papers, then frowned. "When last you come here?" Almost 1 year ago, Bisi said. But I have the money now. The officer scratched his head. Wait first. He stood up and went inside. Bisi waited for minutes that felt like hours. She hummed softly, tapping her nylon bag like a baby. Then the officer returned. He looked at her strangely. Madam, you say you come to pay for who? My brother, Tony Samuel, she repeated, smiling. The officer sighed and said quietly, Madam, your brother no day here again. Bisi's smile froze. N? You mean? They moved him. The officer looked at her for a while, then said, No. He was released 3 months ago. The words entered her ears slowly, like rainwater dripping on stone. Released? She whispered. Who? Who released him? The officer shrugged. I don't know. Someone paid for him. The record says he left on April 14th. Bisi dropped her nylon bag and held the counter. But he hasn't come home. I don't see him. The officer looked at her with pity. Maybe he travel. You go find him small. But Bisi didn't hear anything else. The world around her went quiet. She carried her nylon bag, walked outside, and sat by the gate. For a long time, she just stared into space. Then she began to laugh, a strange, dry laugh that made people turn to look. 3 years I never sleep, she said to herself, laughing and crying at once. And the person I day hustle for. Don't go. For the rest of that day, Bisi walked around like someone in a dream. She didn't even feel her legs moving. The sun was hot, the street noisy, but everything sounded far away. She kept whispering to herself, Released? But where does he go? Why didn't he come home? Her heart didn't want to believe it. She told herself maybe there was a mistake, maybe Tony didn't have transport fare, maybe he was trying to surprise her. But deep inside, she knew something was wrong. That evening, she went to the small house where they used to live before he was arrested. The new tenants didn't know him. She asked some old neighbors, but nobody had seen him. One woman, Mama Gold, came out and said, Ah, Bisi. Long time. You still day this area. Bisi nodded weakly. Mama, I beg, you see my brother Tony? Mama Gold frowned, thinking hard. Small Tony we day play ball that year. Yes, Ma. She shook her head. I never see him since that Warella happen. Oh. Maybe he go village. Village? Bisi repeated. We no even get people for village again. Mama Gold sighed. God go help you find him, my daughter. Bisi thanked her and walked away, but tears rolled down her cheeks. That night, she went back to her usual spot on the street, not to work, but just to sit. Her friends tried to cheer her up. Tina said, Bisi, no cry. Maybe your brother Don hammer somewhere. He no WN come back to trenches. Another girl laughed. ABI he don marry white woman for a budja. They all laughed, trying to make her smile. But Bisi didn't laugh. She just said softly, If Tony hammer, he go come find me. He no fit forget me. That night, Bisi didn't work. She just sat there till morning, staring at the road as if her brother might walk down at any moment. Days turned into weeks. Still no sign of Tony. She went back to the police station again, hoping maybe they'd made a mistake. But the story didn't change. Her brother was released 3 months ago. Someone had signed his papers, and they had a fake address written down. The officer even showed her the form. See him here. This the name of the person that pays for him. Bisi read the name slowly. Alhaji Bello. She frowned. I know anybody like that. The officer shrugged. Maybe NA person we pity am. Bisi nodded, but her heart was uneasy. Who was this Alhaji Bello? And why would he pay for Tony's release and not tell her? She decided to find out. She started asking around. She went to the motor park, to the old football field where Tony used to play, to the small shop where he once worked. But nobody knew anything. At one point, she met one of Tony's old friends, a tall boy called David. Ah, Sister Bisi. David shouted, surprised. Long time. You still find small O. Bisi forced a small smile. David, have you seen Tony since he came out? David scratched his head. Tony? I hear say one man carry him go work for another town. Some people say Port Harcourt. Who be the man? She asked quickly. I know him well, but dem day call him Bello too, David said. A big man always drives a big motor. Bisi felt her chest tighten. That name again. She thanked David and left, walking fast. That night, she couldn't sit still. Her mind was running. She didn't even bother to work. She walked up and down the street, muttering to herself. Some of the other girls laughed, thinking she was going mad. One said, Bisi Don finally craze. She talked to herself now. Bisi turned and snapped, at least I get who I day find. You day find who? They all burst into laughter. Even Bisi laughed small, but her laughter was mixed with tears. The next morning, she decided to go to Port Harcourt. She didn't have much money left, but she couldn't sit and do nothing. She sold her small gas cooker and a few clothes to get transport fare. At the bus park, she looked at the driver and said, Port Harcourt, how much? 15,000, the man said. She counted her money. It was just enough. She entered the bus and sat by the window. As the bus moved, she whispered to herself, Tony, if I find you, I go beat you first before I hug you. Other passengers laughed when they heard her. A woman beside her said, You no go kill your brother before you hug him oh. Bisi smiled weakly. He make me suffer. He must hear em. The journey was long. They stopped many times, and at one point, a man selling gala shouted through the window, Madam, buy gala, buy pure water. Bisi looked at him and said, You go give me for free. The man laughed. N.A. my face you W and chop. Everybody in the bus laughed. Even Bisi joined. For a small moment, she felt human again. Not broken, not lost, just a woman traveling with strangers and laughter. When she finally reached Port Harcourt, the air was thick and hot. She didn't know where to start. She just walked from street to street, asking people, Please, you know any Alhaji Bello we day help boys with work? Most people shook their heads. Some ignored her. She almost gave up, until one evening. While she was buying bread by a junction, a keek driver overheard her and said, You day talk about Bello. That man gets small hotel for Diobu. Her heart jumped. Hotel? You sure? The driver nodded. Yes now. N.A. there, E-day stay. Rich man. E-day help boys sometimes. Bisi thanked him and went there the next day. The hotel wasn't big, but it was neat. She stood outside, watching cars come and go. She waited till evening, then saw a tall man in white kaftan step out of a black jeep. Someone greeted him. Good evening, Alhaji. Bisi froze. Her stomach turned. That was him. The name she had been hearing for months. She took a deep breath, tightened her wrapper, and walked up to him. Good evening, sir, she said politely. He looked at her quickly, frowning. Good evening. Who are you? I'm looking for my brother, Tony Samuel, she said. I was told you help him come out from prison. The man's face changed slightly. Ah, yes. Small boy we I pay for. Wedding happen. Bisi swallowed hard. I never see him since then. I be him sister. Alhaji Bello looked at her for a long time, then sighed. Come inside. Make we talk. As Bisi followed him into the hotel compound, her heart beat fast. She didn't know if this man would give her answers, or destroy what was left of her hope. The inside of Alhaji Bello's office smelled of air freshener and new leather. A small fan hummed in the corner. Bisi sat on the chair across from his big desk, her hand shaking slightly. The man poured himself a drink and looked at her again. So, you are Tony's sister, he said slowly. Yes, sir, Bisi replied softly. I just want know where him day. Alhaji nodded slowly, like he was trying to remember something. That boy. Good boy. Quiet. Always say he gets sister we love him too much. Bisi's eyes brightened a little. Yes sir, N.A. true. N.A. me he day talk about. The man sighed deeply. But you go need strong mind here wedding IWN talk. Bisi's stomach tightened. I get strong mind, sir. Talk. He looked away for a second, then said, Tony no day alive again. The words hit her like thunder. For a moment, everything went quiet. She blinked. Sir, You say what? Al-Haji looked down. He died 2 months after I help him. He had an accident. Bisi's mouth opened, but no words came out. She felt like her heart had stopped beating. Accident. She whispered. Yes, he said softly. He got a small job in my hotel kitchen. One night, him day cross road go by Suya. One Okada man knock him down. Before we carry him go hospital, he don't go. Bisi's hands began to tremble. No, you lie. You day lie. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Al-Haji shook his head slowly. I no go lie for wedding person go find out. I even pay for him burial. Poor boy. Bisi stood up suddenly. Burial? Where? Cemetery for here, he said quietly. If you want, I fit carry you go tomorrow. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear the chair, the walls, the fan, everything. But she just stood there, breathing fast. I never sleep for 3 years, she whispered. I sell myself for road. I beg, I cry, I hustle. All for who don't die since. Al-Haji stood up to her, looking sorry. My sister, life hard sometimes. No blame yourself. But Bisi laughed, a dry, bitter laugh. I should not blame myself? I give my body for nothing. I turn myself to shadow, all because I day try save ghost. She laughed again, then suddenly stopped and looked straight at him. You sure say NA accident? He hesitated, then said, yes. You fit even go police station for this area. DEM go confirm. Bisi nodded slowly. No problem. She walked out of his office quietly. But when she reached the gate, she stopped and looked up at the sky. The sun was hot and angry. She said softly, Tony, why you no come tell me? Even for dream, why you no come? People walking by looked at her and shook their heads. They thought she was talking to herself. That night, Bisi didn't go anywhere. She found a small corner behind a shop and sat there till morning, eyes wide open, tears drying on her face. For the first time, she didn't even feel tired. Her body was heavy, but her mind was empty. The next day, Al-Haji kept his word. He took her to a small cemetery on the edge of town. There, he pointed at a small wooden cross. "Na here we bury am." Bisi knelt down slowly, touching the dry ground. Her fingers traced the name roughly written on the wood. Tony Samuel, gone too soon. She stayed there for hours, not speaking. People came and went, but she didn't move. At one point, a small lizard ran across the grave. She stared at it and said softly, "Even you get home. Me, I no get." Later that evening, she thanked Al-Haji quietly and started walking. She didn't know where she was going. She was just walking away. Away from everything. She walked for hours. Her slippers tore, her feet got dusty, but she didn't stop. She passed people selling roasted corn, women laughing, children playing. Life went on like nothing happened. At one point, a small boy ran into her leg and shouted, "Auntie, sorry." Bisi looked at him and smiled sadly. "No worry, my child. I am the one that's supposed to say sorry." When night came, she sat under a bridge, the same way she used to sit in Lagos. She watched cars pass, their lights dancing on her face. A man passing by her said, "Auntie, you no go sleep." She smiled weakly. "I no day sleep. Sleep no day know my name." He laughed and walked away, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. She looked up at the stars again, just like she used to when she dreamed of saving Tony. But now, the sky looked different, cold and far away. She whispered, "God, I try. You see I try." And for the first time in her life, she wanted to sleep, really sleep, but the tears in her eyes refused to let her. Bisi stayed in Port Harcourt for some days after visiting her brother's grave. She didn't talk much. She would just sit outside the small guest house where she was staying, watching the road like someone waiting for something that would never come. Sometimes, people passing would greet her, and she would smile faintly. Other times, she would just whisper, "Tony, I hope you forgive me." One afternoon, she sat beside the gutter, feeding some breadcrumbs to small birds. A woman selling provisions nearby said, "Sister, you no day eat proper food? You day give all to bird." Bisi smiled. "They are hungry too. I just day share." The woman shook her head. You get good heart. And a pity say the world no good back. Bisi chuckled softly. N.A. true. That night, when the streetlights came on, she looked at her reflection in the glass of a parked car. Her red lipstick was gone. Her face looked older, but there was something peaceful about her eyes, the kind of peace that comes after pain has finished shouting. She thought of returning to Lagos, but there was nothing to return to. No brother, no family, no home. She wanted to disappear quietly, but destiny had other plans. The next morning, while she was sitting outside the small church near the market, a little girl walked up to her. The girl looked about 8, carrying a tray of groundnuts. She smiled shyly. Auntie, you and buy. Bisi smiled back. How much one wrap? 200, the girl said proudly. Bisi laughed. Ah, N.A. gold you day sell? 200 for groundnut. The girl giggled. And in my mama say make I sell 'em like that. If I no sell, she go beat me. Bisi shook her head, amused. Come, sit with me small. The girl sat beside her, swinging her legs. Her name was Favor. She told Bisi she stopped school because her mother couldn't pay fees. As the girl spoke, Bisi felt something inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time, tenderness. She saw in the child the same innocence Tony used to have. When the girl finished talking, Bisi reached into her small bag and gave her 1,000 naira. Take this, she said softly. The girl's eyes widened. Auntie, this is too much. Bisi smiled. Nothing too much for groundnut seller. The girl ran off joyfully, shouting, Thank you, Auntie. Bisi watched her go and felt her heart warm. For the first time since Tony's death, she didn't feel completely empty. Later that week, she went back to Alhaji Bello's hotel. She told him she wanted to work, not as anything fancy, just something that would keep her busy. He agreed and made her a cleaner. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her purpose. Every morning, she swept the floors, washed plates, and smiled at the guests. Some of them recognized her from the streets and whispered behind her back. But Bisi didn't care anymore. She had learned that peace is better than pride. Every night, after cleaning, she would sit behind the hotel quietly, drinking water and looking at the stars. She started sleeping again. Not much, maybe 3 or 4 hours, but it was something. She would sometimes dream of Tony smiling at her, telling her, Sister Bisi, rest small. You don't try. One night, while she was mopping the corridor, the little girl, Favor, came running to her again. Auntie Bisi, my mama say thank you for helping me last week. I'm going back to school now. Bisi froze, then smiled wide. Are you serious? Yes. The girl said proudly, showing her exercise book. See, my name day here. Bisi laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes from deep inside. She hugged the girl tightly. That's my champion, she said. You go be big woman one day. From that day, Favor started visiting her every evening after school. Sometimes they'd sit outside, eating puff-puff together. The girl would tell her funny stories about her teachers and classmates, and Bisi would laugh till her stomach hurt. Life was still hard, but for the first time, Bisi didn't feel alone. She even stopped painting her face and wearing short skirts. The other cleaners teased her. Ah, Bisi Don turned born-again woman. And she would reply, if any peace be born again, then yes, I am born again. Years passed quietly. Bisi never became rich. She didn't marry. But she became known in the area as Auntie Bisi, the kind woman who helped children with their homework and shared food with the hungry. Sometimes, people asked her, why don't you sleep much? And she would smile softly and say, I don't sleep enough for this life. Just not with my eyes closed. One evening, as the sun was going down, she sat outside the hotel with Favor, now a grown girl in secondary school. They were eating roasted corn together. Favor said, Auntie, why you always look at the sky when the sun goes down? Bisi smiled, her eyes gentle. Because I get someone we day live inside that light. Your brother? The girl asked. Yes, Bisi said softly. My brother. He day there, resting. And he go happy say I finally day rest too. The girl held her hand quietly. As the last light of the day faded, Bisi leaned back in her chair and sighed deeply. For once, her heart wasn't heavy. She didn't feel the need to chase or fight anymore. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Sleep no bad, after all." And when Favor turned to look at her again, Bisi's eyes were closed, peaceful, quiet, like someone who had finally found the rest she had been searching for all her life.